my name is Nicole and today I would like to talk about Marvel. So like many others, I am a big fan of the MCU, and so I decided today I would recommend to you guys a book based on whatever your favorite Marvel movie is. So I'm going to be splitting this up into 3 parts based on each phase of the current MCU. A quick note on how I chose these books. They're not all entirely perfect matches, but I tried to choose primarily based on theme and the kind of aesthetic of the book. So like the darker movies get darker books, and the more comedic movies got more comedic books. And then I tried to match up based on themes, types of characters, those kinds of things. So let's just jump right in with movie number 1, the movie that started it all, Iron Man. So not gonna lie, the Iron Man movies were probably the most difficult for me, partially just because I haven't watched them as much as I've watched some of the others and they kind of blur together in my head a little bit. But if your favorite MCU movie is the first Iron Man, then I would recommend This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. This is a duology about a world in which violent acts create literal physical monsters, and I think this matches well with Iron Man 1 because it explores a lot of themes of morality. One of the big questions of the novel is what makes a monster and what makes a human, something that Tony seems to struggle with during this first movie, with coming to terms with his own actions in regard to war and the violence that has occurred with the weapons that he created. This book creates a physical, tangible effect to people's actions, and those larger effects is something that Tony struggles a lot with in the first movie. Next up is The Incredible Hulk, and if your favorite Marvel movie is The Incredible Hulk, then you would like The Young Elites by Mary Lou. This is a fantasy trilogy about a world where this disease went around killing a ton of people, mostly kids, and the ones who didn't die were left with these powers. Their powers are vilified by their society, and it gets into some really interesting questions of morality, who's a hero and who's a villain. And I think it plays really well into Bruce Banner's questions of how he can be a moral, just person with the Hulk living inside of him, so struggling with whether your powers define who you are. Next is Iron Man 2. Again, like I said, struggled a lot with the Iron Mans, but for this, I would recommend Hero by Perry Moore. I did allow myself to choose some books that actually do have superheroes in them, as long as they weren't Marvel or DC book. This book is about a teenage superhero who's struggling with the looming legacy of his father being a superhero and worrying about disappointing him because the main character is gay. I thought that this fits really well with Iron Man 2 because of the questions of legacy, both with Tony and Whiplash dealing with their parents' legacies, disgraced or celebrated. This book deals really well with questions of what makes an actual hero versus just someone with superpowers. Next up is Thor, and if your favorite Marvel movie is Thor, then I would recommend the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. Like the Thor movies, this series goes back and forth between a high fantasy setting and a modern setting. And without giving away any spoilers, the series has a lot of similar themes about what makes a good leader and how to deal with the interaction of the modern world versus the fantastical. The next movie Marvel released was Captain America: The First Avenger, and for that movie, I would recommend The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This book takes a look back on the life of an aged Hollywood starlet, and I think both Evelyn Hugo and Captain America: The First Avenger have a really interesting way of examining the lives of American legends, looking at the good, the bad, the ugly, and the truth that goes beyond just what all the fans think. And closing out phase 3 is The Avengers, and the book I would recommend for that is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is probably the most classically superhero-y book that I'm recommending, but Renegades explores 2 different teams, one of superheroes, one of supervillains. What happens when one of the villains joins up with the heroes? This book has some really great friendship and team dynamics that I think are great for fans of the Avengers. So those are all the movies in phase 1. Phases 2 and 3 will be coming shortly, so keep an eye out for those. I will link them in the doobly-doo once they're up. But until then, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Are these books good fits for these movies? And do you have any other suggestions? Leave them in the comments below. I love you guys, and I'll see you later. Bye!